What are the various processes that impact access and equitable outcomes in advanced math in high school? This is something that I've been fascinated with by a long time. And right now, I have a bunch of ideas I'm exploring, but I really haven't narrowed down what I want my research focus to be. However, all of my research interests pertain to the theme of how schools create or limit access and equitable outcomes for Black students in advanced math classes. So, first, a bit of background. This topic is deeply personal to me. As a kid, I was jumped ahead multiple grade levels in math, beginning in fourth grade. I was always in classes with students several years older than me. And by the middle of high school, when I was taking college courses, my classes were nearly exclusively white boys. The farther along I got in math, the more narrow the definition of smartness seemed to be. More and more, I felt that I wasn't smart in math and I didn't belong in these settings. When I graduated high school after completing several years of college math in high school, I promised myself I would never again take a math class. It took me almost a decade before I got back into math. As a math teacher, I've spent a lot of time thinking about what it means to be smart in math and how to ensure that everyone in my class feels included in that definition. I've learned that when a student believes they belong in math class, their ability to achieve feels limitless. And often, in the suburban yet socioeconomically diverse city of Berkeley, where I worked for nearly 20 years, Black students and families were most often the ones who had never been made to feel by teachers that they would be successful in math class. As a math teacher and district math leader in mathematics, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on and exploring ideas around smartness and who defines it. This photo is of Joshua pondering what looks like a simple problem, but actually isn't. He was given 8 digits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and couldn't repeat any of them, and had to multiply two fractions and come up with a solution that was the largest possible solution where none of the digits were repeated. So as you can see in this example, his answer is 42 over 12, but the 2 repeats in the 2 of the 42 and the 12, and the 4, because one of the fractions is 6/4. He'd been working on this problem for about 45 minutes when I took this picture. And in fact, the whiteboard behind his head is one of several whiteboards along the wall where he kept trying different things and then didn't want to erase it so he could go back and check and tweak what he was doing. And I think just thinking about like, what does it mean to be smart in math? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? Isn't something that math teachers do nearly often enough. A theme in my classroom relates to the same idea of defining what it means to be smart. We need each other. Math is nothing more than solving interesting and challenging problems together. But solving truly complex problems requires a lot of collaboration. So in my class, we did a lot of math that involved playing games that looked like this and figuring out ridiculously hard team challenges and doing a whole lot of very complicated algebra together, using a ton of visual tools to really see what was happening with the math. And pedagogy isn't part of my research. Neither is defining smartness or belonging. None of those things are directly part of my research, but my ultimate goal is to have a systemic influence over how secondary math is taught so that Black students are always made to feel they belong and that they are brilliant in any mathematical space in education. So the purpose of my annotated bibliography. First, I want to understand how various scholars have researched topics around access and equity to high school math, or to advanced high school math. So this involves a couple of things. Who takes high school math, and what are common factors amongst those who do? What are the various courses that are considered advanced math, and what are the pathways to get to them? How does middle school tracking, specifically whether or not you take Algebra 1 in middle school, impact future course pathways? And once students enroll in advanced math, are there equitable outcomes? Themes in the literature. Over the last decade, a higher percentage of underrepresented minority students are taking advanced math in high school. However, there are large differences in achievement among them in these courses compared to their white and Asian peers. Another theme in the literature is that mixed methods are necessary. since there's little consistency in ways students can access these courses. There's a lot of big quantitative studies around course selection and outcomes. However, without really digging deep qualitatively, because there's not consistency into how students get into these courses, how does tracking work, what are the testing requirements, if any, to these courses, it's really important to have qualitative research as well to just dig deeper into what's happening. Additionally, there's two main ways that students can take college coursework in high school. And there's a wide variation in which types of courses are offered and their impact on access and equitable outcomes. So one option is taking AP courses, and another option is taking what's often called dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment, where you're taking either community, well, most often community college courses. Some are taught at high schools exclusively for high school students, and some are high school students traveling to community colleges to take college level coursework with other college students. Additionally, another theme in the literature is just issues around AP classes versus dual enrollment. So AP classes are historically considered by families as more prestigious for college admissions. I think that's somewhat changing from what I understand from the literature, but they just have a longer standing historical context. In AP courses, one test determines whether or not you're going to get college credit, and there's a fee to take the exam, and most often there's a GPA bump for taking AP courses. Dual enrollment, which is taking community college courses while in high school, either at your high school or going and traveling to community college. This is a more recent option. There's been recent California policy around it. A grade of C or above determines that you will get college credit, so it's not based on a single exam. The courses are free, and there's potentially more flexibility in course offerings because you potentially have access to all of the courses that are offered through a community college, assuming there's one local to you. Gaps in the literature. There are many. Quantitative studies about teachers' attitudes, about who is smart, why they believe certain students are more successful than others in their advanced math classes. I really have not found any good, solid quantitative studies around teachers' attitudes pertaining to smartness. Next, there's a gap in terms of studying the pedagogy of advanced math teacher and who does well with that pedagogy. There's some very common pedagogy amongst many advanced math teachers, and I haven't seen a whole lot of studies around who benefits from that pedagogy and who doesn't. Next, qualitative and quantitative studies on students' sense of belonging in advanced math class, analyzed with a critical race lens. Studies on the impact of white privilege in advanced math spaces of both students and teachers, and also the impact of stereotype threat on students, analyzed both by race and gender. And finally, what are patterns in advanced math access and outcomes in high school where nearly all the students are underrepresented minority students? Those are not the schools where I have taught math, and so it's an area where I'm far less familiar, but I would really like to explore. Practical implications. So first, issues around this are very much in the news in California and locally right now. There's a huge debate happening both at the state. There was just a KQED presentation on Forum about California's proposed math instruction guidelines. And then they use a lot of studies in San Francisco where they claim to have gotten rid of algebra in high school, that they've gotten rid of tracking in high school. But then there's a lot of pushback right now by teachers saying that, yeah, you technically got rid of algebra in high school, but then the more affluent students are just taking algebra in other ways through expensive online courses. And so saying and boasting that you actually got rid of tracking and algebra in middle school isn't really what happened in practice. It's common for districts to say that they're working towards advanced math classes, reflecting the overall demographics of the school. But to actually create change, which happens far less commonly from my experience, the work must happen on multiple levels. Middle schools have to reflect on their course-taking policies and their impact. Who takes Algebra 1 or geometry in middle school? How are those students chosen? What policy changes could impact who takes those classes? What kinds of ongoing professional development is happening with secondary math teachers to ensure that teachers teach with a broader definition of what it means to be smart in math and teach in ways that ensure that all students feel a sense of belonging in the class? How are teacher evaluations ensuring that math teachers' pedagogy is shifting away from direct instruction and that classrooms reflect true social emotional learning and are safe spaces for all students to learn, make mistakes, and be curious? How are schools working to diversify who's teaching math? Finally, I wanted to end with this quick little screenshot from one of my favorite websites, both as a teacher and now as a vice principal. It's Mathematically Gifted in Black and features an endless database with bios of Black mathematicians. Every high school Black math student should have the opportunity to end up featured on this website. There's some huge shifts in teachers' pedagogy and district practices which need to happen to realize this opportunity, and these are the ones that I hope to work on through my research and my role in education.